Is Parker Schnabel slowly getting consumed by this very thing that made him popular? When it comes to mining gold, Parker is always at his best. He has made discoveries that'll make other miners go green with envy. But all isn't well. For every discovery he made and victory he had, Parker paid a price. Then, he found something disturbing that surprised even him. What is it? What price would he pay for it? The mine that made him. On July 22, 1994, in Haines, Alaska, Parker Schnabel was born into a family where mining wasn't just a profession but a legacy. His grandfather John Schnabel had purchased the Big Nugget mine in 1984, 45 years after moving to Haines from Kansas as a teenager. John bought that claim on doctor's orders. Heart surgery recovery. Stay active, the doctors told him. So he bought a gold mine. If he was going to be active, why not make money while doing it? John became a legend in those hills. Mayor of Haines, sawmill operator and pioneer, John was the man parents wanted their son to be. By the time Parker was old enough to walk, John was teaching him the only education that mattered in their family. How to read dirt, operate equipment, and find gold where others saw only rocks and mud. Parker started working in John's mine when he was 5 years old. While other kids were learning their ABCs, Parker was learning hydraulics, excavation angles, and how permafrost affects gold distribution. The Big Nugget mine wasn't a summer job but his classroom, playground, and his entire childhood. Imagine growing up at that age and learning about compressed pay dirt and sluice boxes. No wonder Parker's whole life is mining. It's all he knows. By the time he reached high school, Parker could operate heavy machinery better than men 3 times his age. He understood wash plants, conveyor systems, and gold recovery methods that took most miners decades to master. But more importantly, he understood something his grandfather had spent a lifetime learning. Mining isn't about luck. It's about persistence, making decisions when exhaustion clouds your judgment, and equipment failures threaten to bankrupt you, and pushing through when every logical voice in your head screams to quit. John taught him that, not through lectures but through examples. All those years of watching his grandfather work through injuries, equipment breakdowns, and lean seasons when gold refused to show itself was burned into his memory. Then John made a crazy decision that shocked everyone who knew him. At 91 years old, after decades of running Big Nugget Mine, John stepped down, and he handed the entire operation to his 16-year-old grandson. Most kids that age can't be trusted with car keys, talk less of a multi-million-dollar mining operation. Parker Schnabel was suddenly responsible to keep his grandfather's legacy alive and work with a crew of weathered miners who'd been working gold claims since before he was born. The pressure should have crushed and buried him deeper than any mine shaft, but something happened that nobody expected. Parker thrived. He didn't just maintain the operation, he expanded it. He brought in new equipment, optimized recovery methods, and made decisions that miners twice his age questioned but which eventually paid off. That first year he got the business, he recovered around $55,000 worth of gold. It wasn't spectacular by industry standards, but it was remarkable for a teenager running his first full season as mine boss. Then he steadily began to grow, and not long after, he recovered over $300,000 worth of gold. He wasn't just filling his grandfather's boots, he was growing beyond them. But here's what the cameras never showed you. The weight of that inheritance was brutal. Parker had to carry around the knowledge that John had built something extraordinary over decades, and he couldn't afford to ruin it. However, John believed in him completely, but that belief didn't remove the pressure. It amplified it. And Parker continued to feel every ounce of that weight every time he climbed into an excavator cab. It just wasn't about keeping his grandfather's business running. They had this special bond, and it wasn't just the regular bond between grandfather and grandson. And it wasn't just regular mentorship either. It was special, life-giving and fulfilling. When Parker would later be asked about his favorite memory from all his years on Gold Rush, he didn't talk about record-breaking hauls or million-dollar paydays. He talked about being mentored by John, those early mornings learning equipment operation, those long evenings discussing where to dig next, those moments when John would look at him with pride, knowing his legacy was safe. Then, on the 18th of March 2016, John Schnabel passed away at 96 years old of congestive heart failure. The world of mining mourned him, but the world was going to move on. For Parker, what he lost that day went beyond what any camera could capture. He lost his mentor, his anchor, the man who taught him everything that mattered. And from that moment forward, every decision Parker made carried a new weight. Now, it wasn't just proving himself to the world, it was proving himself to the memory of the man who believed in him first. Breaking away. Then, when he made this next decision, everyone who knew him, including his own family, were stunned. Parker decided he was leaving Big Nugget Mine, the mine his grandfather built, the mine he grew up working in, the operation he'd spent years perfecting. Parker was walking away from all of it to lease ground from Tony Beets, the legendary Dutch-Canadian miner known throughout the Yukon as one of the toughest operators in the business. Parker was 18 years old and he was using his college fund to finance this gamble. Talk about bold, but let that sink in for a moment. Most 18-year-olds use their college fund for tuition, textbooks, and dorm rooms. Parker Schnabel used his to lease mining ground in one of the harshest environments on Earth, working for a man with a reputation for breaking young miners who couldn't handle the pressure. His family had saved that money for his education, a future at any university he wanted, a chance at a traditional career. Security. Security? Parker didn't need that kind of security. What he needed was opportunity, and when he saw it, he took it. So he left Alaska and ventured north into the Yukon Territory of Canada. He negotiated a lease with Tony Beets at Scribner Creek, and he built a crew from scratch. The skeptics lined up immediately. A teenager trying to make it in the Klondike with no established claim? Working ground that Tony Beets controlled? He'd be bankrupt within weeks. Except Parker wasn't playing by normal rules. He brought intensity that is best described as obsession, and it brought big results. Season 4 ended with Parker mining 1,029 ounces of gold after combining his main season haul with additional mining he did with Rick Ness. The gold was worth around $1.4 million. He didn't just succeed. He broke Todd Hoffman's single-season record and eclipsed Hoffman's entire 4-season total. At 18 years old, Parker Schnabel had proven something nobody could argue against anymore. He wasn't just John Schnabel's grandson riding family coattails. He was a legitimate mining force in his own right, and he was just getting started. But success brought new challenges. He needed bigger operations, more crew members, and better equipment. His expenses increased, and so did his risk. So, he took that next step. He began scaling his operation in ways that made veteran miners nervous. He wasn't content with one wash plant. He wanted multiple operations running simultaneously. He wasn't satisfied with leasing ground. He wanted to own it outright. Every dollar he made went back into the operation. While other successful young people were buying sports cars and mansions, Parker was purchasing excavators, bulldozers, and wash plants. His philosophy was simple and brutal in its honesty. He said he didn't own a house or anything fancy. He just wanted to improve his operations, and that operation was getting bigger and more expensive. By his mid-20s, Parker commanded an operation that employed dozens of people, ran multiple wash plants, and processed hundreds of thousands of cubic yards of dirt every season. The kid who started with a college fund was now running a business with overhead costs that would terrify most established companies. Season 7 brought 4,300 ounces worth over $5 million. Season 9, 7,427.25 ounces, $8.4 million. A new gold rush record. Season 10 broke that record despite mining fewer ounces, because Parker was now mining his own ground instead of paying massive royalties to landowners. 7,223 ounces netted him $10.8 million, his biggest payday ever at that point. The math was staggering. By age 24, Parker had mined over $13 million worth of gold. By his early 30s, that number had climbed past $100 million in gross gold value. But here's what those numbers don't show. The failures nobody talked about. The equipment breakdowns that cost hundreds of thousands in lost production time. The permafrost that wouldn't thaw when schedules demanded it. The crew conflicts that threatened to tear operations apart. The weather delays that pushed budgets to breaking points. And the constant, relentless pressure of knowing that one bad season could erase years of profits. That one wrong decision about where to dig, what equipment to buy, or how to allocate resources could mean the difference between success and bankruptcy. Parker wasn't just building a mining operation. He was building a multi-million-dollar gamble that required perfect execution, season after season after season. And unlike video games, there were no save points, no restarts. Every decision was final and measured in ounces of gold that either appeared or didn't. The world watched a young millionaire succeed spectacularly on television. What they didn't see was the young man lying awake at night calculating fuel costs, equipment depreciation, and whether the gold in the ground would justify the money he'd already spent digging for it. Mining had made Parker rich, but it had also made him something else, obsessed. The $15 million gamble. So obsessed that in season 14 of Gold Rush, Parker Schnabel spent $15 million to purchase Dominion Creek. In one transaction, Parker bet more money than most people earn in multiple lifetimes. He wasn't leasing this ground. He wasn't partnering with anyone. He was buying it outright. And the pressure of that decision would define the next phase of his entire career. Why would anyone take that kind of risk? Parker explained it to People magazine with brutal honesty. His operation had grown massive. He employed dozens of people who depended on his success for their livelihoods. He ran 4 separate wash plants. He had invested millions in equipment. And all of that infrastructure needed ground. Lots of ground. Ground with enough gold to justify the enormous operational costs. Think about that for a moment. Parker's biggest fear wasn't losing money. It was letting down the people who'd helped build his success. The crew members who'd worked alongside him for years. The miners who'd trusted him with their careers. Dominion Creek came with geological surveys suggesting it might hold 80,000 ounces of gold. At $2,000 per ounce, that's $160 million in potential value. But potential isn't reality. The gold had to actually be there, in mineable quantities, in accessible locations, and it had to be economically viable to extract. Parker's first excavation site at Dominion Creek earned an ominous nickname from his crew, the Money Pit. And for good reason. In just 6 months of operation, the Money Pit yielded 7,381.1 ounces of gold. The value? $15 million. Parker had essentially recovered his entire investment in his first major dig. The single biggest week at Dominion Creek brought in over $1.1 million. Just 1 week. But success at the Money Pit didn't erase the pressure, because now that Parker had proven Dominion Creek could produce, the expectations on him are now even higher. Imagine that pressure to maintain that intensity he began with, especially when business challenges grew. In season 15, his operation suffered so many problems that made his crew extract only 135 ounces over 4 weeks, when they needed to be hitting 10,000 ounces for the full season. They were catastrophically behind schedule. For the first time in 14 years, Parker Schnabel missed his gold target. The man who'd built his reputation on consistency, on breaking records, on delivering results season after season, fell short. And he was embarrassed, but in season 16 he returned with a point to prove and a budget that would terrify most business owners. In his November 2025 interview with People magazine, he revealed he was spending up to $250,000 per day to keep his operation running. That's $1.75 million per week, $7 million per month. Over a 6-month mining season, $42 million, and everything went to operations alone. And here's the brutal truth about Dominion Creek. It's not just an investment. It's a commitment that will define whether Parker Schnabel's mining career ends as a spectacular success story or a cautionary tale about overextension and hubris. Because $15 million is just the beginning. The ongoing operational costs, the equipment investments needed to process that ground efficiently, the pressure to hit increasingly ambitious targets to justify those expenses. All of it adds up to a gamble that makes his original college fund investment look like pocket change. Geological surveys suggest Dominion Creek might hold $160 million in gold. But might isn't certainty. And in mining, uncertainty kills operations just as surely as empty ground. Parker Schnabel bet everything on Dominion Creek, his reputation, his fortune, his future. And every season from here forward will be measured against whether that bet pays off or becomes the decision that finally broke him. Chapter 4. The Price of Gold. But Parker knows what it means to be broken. The cameras show you the victories. The massive cleanouts where thousands of ounces pour through sluice boxes and accumulate in gold rooms. The weigh-ins where Parker announces totals worth millions of dollars. The celebrations when records break and goals get exceeded. What the cameras don't show is the cost. Not just financial, personal. Mining had made Parker Schnabel a millionaire before he turned 25, but it had also isolated him in ways that money couldn't fix. In 2016, while visiting Australia during a break from filming, Parker met Ashley Yule. She was a veterinary nurse from Melbourne. Beautiful, kind, and adventurous enough to find Parker's unconventional lifestyle intriguing rather than intimidating. They connected immediately. Parker invited her to spend the summer mining season with him in the Klondike. Most people would have declined. Who wants to spend months in the Yukon wilderness washing rocks and living in mining camps? Ashley said yes. She appeared on Gold Rush starting in Season 7. She worked alongside Parker's crew, helping in the gold room, driving trucks when needed, adapting to the brutal lifestyle with remarkable grace. Parker spoke about her warmly in interviews, praising her ability to roll with the punches and contribute wherever needed. For a brief moment, it seemed like Parker had found someone who could handle the intensity of his world. Someone who understood that mining wasn't just his job, it was his identity. But that intensity proved too much. Season 8 marked Ashley's final appearances on Gold Rush. By Season 9, she was gone. And in the episode titled Win Big or Die Trying, Parker addressed what happened with brutal honesty. As successful as our season was, there was, for me personally, one pretty big failure, he said on camera. Ashley and I broke up. I just never really made the relationship a priority. Didn't make her a priority, and she deserves a lot better than that. At the end of the day, I do think she is doing what's best for her, and that's the hardest part of it. It's a real shame. Parker took full responsibility. He didn't blame the distance. He didn't blame the lifestyle. He blamed himself for not making the relationship a priority, for putting mining above everything else, for being exactly who he'd always been, even when that meant losing someone important. Later interviews revealed more depth to Parker's struggle with relationships. In a November 2024 interview with People magazine, Parker joked about how difficult it is to even explain his job to potential partners. I try to explain it in a way that doesn't sound like Mad Max, he said with a laugh. It's hard to explain that without it sounding like some dystopian, insane world. I'm in the woods and you're living in a bunker washing rocks, looking for little shiny rocks. Then it makes dating incredibly difficult. They're like, "What do you do?" And I'm like, "I don't know." The isolation goes deeper than dating difficulties. Parker admitted in previous interviews that he'd lost touch with most of his old friends. All the guys I used to hang out with, they've moved on, and I've moved on and don't really have time to keep up. Mining keeps him in the Yukon for 6 months every year. The other 6 months involve planning, equipment purchases, and occasional travel adventures documented in his spin-off series, Parker's Trail. There's no time for normal friendships, no space for casual relationships, no room for anything that doesn't serve the mining operation. Even his living situation reflects this stark prioritization. Parker doesn't own a mansion. He doesn't have a sprawling estate. In 2018, he had to debunk social media rumors about owning an extravagant property. His actual home in Haines, Alaska, a 2,000-square-foot house valued at around $279,000, modest by any standard, especially for someone with his net worth. When asked what he splurges his millions on, Parker's answer surprises people who expect tales of yachts and supercars. Instead, he spends money on experiences he can share with others, taking his father to a World Series game, organizing hunting trips for his crew, travel adventures with friends during the off-season. It's admirable and generous. The mark of someone who values experiences and relationships over material possessions. But it's also revealing because even Parker's generosity serves to strengthen his crew bonds and improve his operation. Everything circles back to mining. In his November 2024 interview, Parker admitted he hopes to start a family someday, but he framed it as something for after Gold Rush ends, not alongside his career, after. But Gold Rush shows no signs of ending. The show has run since 2010. It has around 400 episodes, multiple spin-offs. And as long as Parker keeps finding gold and the ratings stay strong, there's no reason for Discovery Channel to cancel it. Which means Parker's future family plans remain indefinitely postponed. Pushed back season after season while he chases ounces and breaks records and proves himself over and over to an audience of millions. His grandfather John used to coach him about being kinder to others, about not letting ambition consume everything else, about remembering that life existed beyond the mind. Parker remembers those lessons. He acknowledges his failures. He takes responsibility for relationships that didn't work and friendships that faded. But remembering and changing are different things, because mining isn't just what Parker Schnabel does, it's who he is. And that identity comes with a price that no amount of gold can repay. The secrets Gold Rush never shows. So what does Gold Rush not show you? What happens in the 6 months between seasons? What goes on behind the cameras when the drama isn't being captured for television? Parker Schnabel has spent half his life on reality television. 15 years of cameras following his every decision, every success, every failure. That kind of exposure shapes a person in ways the audience never fully understands. Former Gold Rush cast member Jimmy Dorsey claimed in interviews after leaving the show that certain elements were scripted from the beginning. He alleged that producers knew exactly what they wanted to see and guided situations accordingly. Though he also admitted the actual mining and some dangerous moments were genuinely real. Parker addressed this in various interviews over the years. Yes, there's a production schedule. Yes, certain dramatic moments get emphasized for television. But the gold is real, the machinery is real, the breakdowns are real. The financial pressure is absolutely real. What gets lost in the editing are the mundane realities that don't make compelling television. The weeks of routine operation when nothing dramatic happens. The careful planning sessions where Parker and his foreman map out excavation strategies. The maintenance work that keeps equipment running but isn't exciting to watch. Also hidden from viewers, the true psychological toll of running a multi-million-dollar operation under constant camera scrutiny. Every mistake becomes public. Every failed relationship gets dissected by millions of viewers. Every financial decision is second-guessed by armchair mining experts on social media. Parker developed a reputation for being temperamental and difficult, hot-headed, abrasive, quick to anger when things don't go according to plan. And yes, some of that is genuine. Mining at the level Parker operates requires intensity and unwillingness to accept excuses. But some of that temperament comes from pressure that would break most people. Try making decisions worth hundreds of thousands of dollars while exhausted from 20-hour workdays. Try managing crew conflicts while knowing production schedules are slipping. Try staying calm when permafrost won't thaw and equipment breaks down and targets that seemed achievable become impossible. Then add cameras capturing every moment, every outburst, every failure. Every private conversation suddenly becoming public entertainment. In Season 7, Parker even had a falling out with longtime Gold Rush cameraman James Lavelle during the filming of Parker's Trail. Parker admitted in an interview that he and Lavelle got into it quite a bit and didn't speak after the project ended. Living and working in close quarters under intense pressure with cameras documenting everything, that environment would strain any relationship. The miracle isn't that Parker occasionally conflicts with crew members or production staff. The miracle is that he's maintained any functional relationships at all. This brings us to the part where Gold Rush also doesn't show. And we are talking about the strangest discoveries Parker has made while mining. We'll talk about the disturbing thing he found. In an interview with Parker revealed he's unearthed mammoth tusks preserved in permafrost. They're preserved because they're ivory, and they were buried in the permafrost so the weather doesn't really get to them. Some of those came out in beautiful shape. Well-preserved mammoth tusks can fetch tens of thousands of dollars at fossil auctions. Parker keeps them. He thinks they're too cool to sell. When you're making millions from gold, apparently prehistoric ivory becomes a keepsake rather than additional revenue. The show also glosses over something Parker admitted in interviews. He doesn't keep all the gold he finds. Parker explained his approach. "My approach is to sell everything before startup of the next season, regardless of cash requirements or gold price." He sells the gold to fund operations, to buy equipment, to pay crews. The gold isn't an end goal. It's a means to keep the operation running so he can mine more gold next season. It's a cycle that has no natural endpoint. Mine gold, sell gold, invest in better equipment, then invest in bigger operations. The machine feeds itself, growing larger and more expensive with each season. And perhaps most hidden from viewers, the reality that Parker acknowledged himself. He makes more money from his mining operation than from appearing on Gold Rush. The television salary is substantial but secondary. His primary income comes from the actual gold he extracts. Discovery Channel reportedly pays cast members around $25,000 per episode. With over 20 episodes per season, that's over $500,000 annually just for appearing on the show. Substantial money for most people. For Parker, that barely covers the fuel costs for a single month of operation. The show made him famous, but mining made him rich, and the fame complicated his life in ways money couldn't solve. Because Parker Schnabel can't walk into a normal situation anymore, he's recognized everywhere. His relationships become tabloid fodder. His decisions get dissected by millions. He traded privacy for success, normalcy for fortune, and the life he built, while impressive and lucrative, bears almost no resemblance to the life most people would recognize as balanced or sustainable. So where does Parker Schnabel go from here? He's 31 years old. He's mined over 63,000 ounces of gold in his career with a gross market value exceeding $100 million. He owns one of the most valuable mining claims in the Yukon. He commands an operation that employs dozens of people and processes hundreds of thousands of cubic yards of pay dirt every season. By any measure, Parker Schnabel has succeeded beyond what anyone could have predicted when he first appeared on Gold Rush as a teenager. But success and fulfillment are different things. And the question Parker faces isn't whether he can keep mining successfully. It's whether he's willing to keep paying the price that success demands. Dominion Creek remains the defining bet of Parker's career. If it continues producing at money pit levels, Parker could mine there for decades and extract that theoretical $160 million in gold. He could cement his legacy as one of the most successful independent miners in modern history. But if Dominion Creek disappoints, if the permafrost proves too difficult, if equipment costs spiral beyond even his substantial means, then the $15 million purchase could become the decision that marked the beginning of his decline rather than the foundation of his empire. And there's the personal question hanging over everything. Parker says he wants a family. He says he'll start that chapter once Gold Rush ends. But he's been saying versions of that for years while the show continues and mining consumes every season. At what point does Parker Schnabel decide he's mined enough gold? That he's proven enough? That the legacy he's built honors his grandfather's memory sufficiently? That it's time to choose something other than the mine? Or is that question even relevant? Because maybe Parker doesn't want a different life. Maybe the isolation and pressure and relentless focus are features, not bugs. Maybe some people are built for one thing and one thing only, and everything else is just distraction from their true purpose. Parker Schnabel followed his grandfather into those Alaskan hills when he was 5 years old. 26 years later, he's still there, still digging, still chasing ounces, still building an operation that grows bigger and more expensive and more demanding every season. The cameras will keep rolling, the gold will keep flowing or it won't. The seasons will keep coming. And Parker will keep making decisions worth millions of dollars while living in mining camps and operating in a world that most people will never understand. From a boy chasing gold beside his grandfather to a man risking everything every sunrise, Parker Schnabel's story isn't finished. It's still being written in ounces and operational budgets and lonely nights in the Yukon wilderness. Do you think Parker's greatest victory is ahead of him or behind him? Can someone who's achieved so much, so young, find contentment? Or is the pursuit itself the only thing that matters? Let us chat in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe to this channel for more untold truths.